Hello and welcome to another Thursday live interview with me, Anne Diamond, coming to you from a rather wet and windy July evening here in Britain. I hope you've been keeping safe and well wherever you are in the world, and it's lovely for us to be able to unite here on Viking television whilst we all look back on and hopefully look forward to our wonderful holiday cruises. Well, today, let us together savour the delights of a place that you might just visit if you were to come here to Britain. It's called Chatsworth. It really is one of the jewels in the crown of England. It is one of the most extraordinary stately homes in the world, and actually experts call it one of the great treasure houses of Britain. It's the ancestral home of the Dukes of Devonshire, one of the oldest and most influential families in history. And as you can see, Chatsworth is spectacular. Not just the building, nor just the luscious grounds which span hundreds of acres, but it's always been home of the most fabulous art collections, treasures and works of art that can now be shared with all of us, at least in normal times. Just look at it. It is absolutely beautiful and spectacular. Imagine if you lived there. So please now, let's meet the man who, when he inherited the title Duke of Devonshire, he also inherited Chatsworth and everything that it is meant to be, its legacy. A very warm welcome then to the Duke of Devonshire, who joins us now from the Stag Parlour, I think.
That's right.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Chatsworth.
Oh, thank you very much. And that is, as I said, the Stag Parlour.
Well, that's what the room is now, mine and Amanda's office, but it was historically called the Stag Parlour. I'm afraid because it was a smoking room into which only the males were invited. So it was called the Stag Parlour, perhaps a little bit tongue-in-cheek, I don't know. But anyway, it is one of the few rooms that actually hasn't had its name changed. So although none of the uses for which it was originally made apply, that's what it's called.
It's a much friendlier place now, is it?
Well, it's a working environment, and it's a lovely place to work.
And forgive me, what do I call you? Do I address you as Your Grace?
Well, you can if you like, but I prefer to be called Stoker, which is my name. It's not my real name, but it's what I've always been called, what everybody calls me. So Stoker it is, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely all right with me. I'd much rather call you Stoker. It is the most beautiful, beautiful place, Chatsworth. Is it very daunting having it as your home? Is it a burden? Is it a legacy? How do you consider it?
I certainly don't think it's a burden. I'm incredibly proud of it. I absolutely love being here, and I love arriving back here. Every time I come back along the road where it comes into view round across the river, it's a thrill, and so I'm very proud of it. I love working here. I love all the things that happen here, the exhibitions, the farms, the forestry, everything. It's a complicated place, but there's lots going on, and we have wonderful people here as well. And of course, we welcome about 600 in a normal year, about 600,000 visitors every year. So that's a pleasure as well.
Of course, it's not been a normal year. How has lockdown been for you?
Well, it's been a disaster from the business point of view, a complete disaster, because the garden's only been open for about 3 weeks, and we're hoping to open the house towards the end of this month. We're not quite sure exactly when, but it will be much quieter. People, everybody has to book in advance. We want to keep people safe. We want to keep our staff safe. We want to keep ourselves safe, and of course, we want to keep our visitors safe. So there are many, many fewer people, and the business of Chatsworth and the house and the garden relies on income. The charity that runs it relies on the income from visitors. So there hasn't been any.
No, but I imagine you are looking forward to being able to release yourself out of a lockdown. What's in the immediate diary for you?
Well, as I say, the garden's been open for about three or 4 weeks, and a bit weather dependent, but we're getting a few people, maybe 300 or 400, maybe 500 people on a nicer day. And then we'll open the house, all the events this year, the horse trials, the country fair, the RHS flower show, all have had to be cancelled. We're not quite sure about our Christmas markets, which are a big deal for us at the end of the year, but it looks a little bit unlikely to me anyway, but what do I know? So it will be very steady, very, very steady for this calendar year. We of course will make a plan for we have a plan for next year, but it all depends on the pandemic.
Yes, and who knows how that's going to come out. I have never visited Chatsworth, and I feel very guilty for telling you that, because it is such an extraordinary place, and it is so huge. So here we are doing a programme talking about Chatsworth. If you were to welcome me for an afternoon, I've only got one afternoon, and I were to come up, where do you even start to show somebody like me your favourite places or something you think I should see? Where do we start?
Well, luckily, as you'd arrived from the outside, you would have seen the landscape, which is the thing which is actually the most loved thing about Chatsworth. It is pretty much man-made, but the park and the woods that surround it and the house that sits in the middle of it by the river and the architecture and the trees and the sort of the sheep and everything in the park and the deer. So you've absorbed a bit of that on the way in, and then I'd have taken you fairly quickly through the very grand rooms. The house was it was an Elizabethan house originally, built in about 1550, and then that was superseded by a house built in about 1700. It took 20 years, but say 1700. And that house is the square house that you still see today. And that house was built to show off. That's why the windows are gilded, the finials on the roof are gilded, and it's all saying, look at me. It's a big, blingy, show-off house. So I hope that you will be pleased by that and amused and, dare I say it, a little bit impressed. So I take you to the grand rooms, which were decorated by the people who were working on Hampton Court Palace at the same time in the very early 18th century, end of the 17th century. So quickly through the staterooms, looking at any, depending on what you're interested in, whether it's paintings or furniture or carpets or ceilings or whatever. And there are interspersed quite a lot of contemporary stuff, and you might pick up on that. Some people are more interested in the contemporary, some people like the older, some people like the mixture. And then take you around into some of the Victorian rooms, where there's a lot of Victorian sculpture, which when I was a child was incredibly unfashionable and unpopular. Nobody would really they'd be embarrassed to talk about it. But now Canova and his ilk are the sort of height of fashion. So you probably want to see that, and then perhaps a cup of tea, and then I would definitely get you to come into the garden, which is where Amanda and I spend a lot of our time. And we would then spend as much time as we could, if we were willing to, and it wasn't too bad, looking at the garden, the new things that are happening there, of which are legion, and some of the old features and some of the sculpture and the views out and so on. And by then I think you would be tired of your train journey back, which was very easy. And I hope you'd love it.
And that is just the smallest taste of what you have to show people. Was it art always your passion? I mean, when you inherited, did you know what you were going to do? Did you have a grand plan?
No, I was 60 when my father died, and Amanda's the same age. And so we had thought about it for a while, for a bit. We sort of more or less knew that would be the next stage of our lives. We had lived in Yorkshire for about 25 years, doing other things completely, but with my father and mother involved us to a degree at least in the management. So we had, one of the things that we knew was that we wanted to live at Chatsworth, which wasn't a given. We didn't have to, but we very much wanted to. I was 13 when my parents moved back here after the war, and so I lived here as a sort of teenager. And we were determined, Amanda and I were determined, so we knew that all the services had to be renewed because they were 50 years old, the water, electric, all those sort of things. And that meant quite a big job, we thought, but it turned out to be 10 years job. of refurbishment.
Because there's a famous picture, isn't there, of the entire building covered in scaffolding,
Yes.
Which I think you called the sugar cube. Because
a young visitor, 10-year-old visitor, said, "What's it like living in a sugar cube?" Seemed to be the most appropriate description. And of course, it was jolly dark inside for 2 years. But that was fine. You get through those things. And it was worth it. We cleaned all the outside. The scaffolding was to clean the stone and to mend it. It was in fairly good condition. But so we did that, and we refurbished a lot of the square house and some of the wing. There's still a project list as long as your arm, which of course, because of the pandemic, everything's on hold now. But the house is in, I like to think, in pretty good nick. The roof is on, it's secure, there's no buckets upstairs. And it's comfortable, it's warm, and it's a much better visitor route, much more accessible. It's much better for people in wheelchairs, better for elderly people. The lighting's better, all those sort of things which you don't necessarily notice. What I call dentistry, that it's crucial, painful, expensive, and sort of almost invisible. But without it, you're in a bad place.
Absolutely, yes, that's dentistry, all right. Of course, the role of Chatsworth as well, it hasn't just been a beautiful, stately home. It's always been a patronage of the arts, hasn't it? It's always had the most amazing collections. So
most of the time.
What did you want to do? How did you think how I'm going to contribute? What was, for instance, one of the first pieces you ever bought? I think it was a Hockney, wasn't it?
Well, the first original work of art I bought, I was about 18. I bought a drawing by David Hockney when he was obviously pretty young then. I knew his dealer quite well, and they had a little gallery in Bond Street called Casmi Gallery, and it was £25, but I only had 18. So they let me have it for 18, which was, it's not one of his greatest works, but it was a start. And my parents, particularly my father, were collectors, and Amanda's parents were collectors. And so we were both used to having new things about, and things which a lot of my parents and Amanda's parents, contemporaries and friends, really didn't like. I don't know whether at some stage we'll probably talk about the Lucian Freud pictures which my father bought. Yes. And when the portrait of my mother, the lady in a white shirt, when that first came to Chatsworth in 1959, quite a lot of their friends, their guests, would only sit in the sitting room with it if it was covered in a scarf, because they were so horrified by it.
Well, let's see if we can see that now, because we have got a video of that, and that is your mother, painted by Lucian Freud, and it is, it's, some people will not like it, some people will see the artistry in it, and of course you're very fond of it, I know, because it's
I love it.
Else. Let's see if we can find that video for you now. It's called Woman in a White Shirt.
It took about 3 years to paint. He was very, very slow. They became great friends during the painting. And I think it's a really lovely thing. She was only 40 when, let's see, 50. She wasn't 38 then, she was born in 1920. So she's quite a young woman and a very good looking woman. And the initial impact of the painting is not of a good looking young woman.
No, that's right. I think that's why some people haven't particularly liked it, because it makes her look like a sort of rather troubled older woman. But
she grew into it.
He was a great artist, and he was doing his thing. We're trying to see if we can find that video to show everybody now. It's the story. We can find it.
I love it as a painting because I think it's a very beautiful painting. I don't think it's a sad picture. But the important thing to me was that I realized that my parents had acquired a painting which a lot of their friends really didn't like. And so that was fine for them. And Amanda's mother, at about the same time, had bought a picture by Francis Bacon. And exactly the same thing happened to Amanda. She saw her parents' friends hating this picture and thought, well, my parents like it, so it's fine. So that was a good. So it made us not so hidebound, maybe not so conventional.
Well, let's have a look at it now. We've got the video here to play.
Yeah.
Let's sit back and watch it.
Woman in a white shirt is probably the most beautiful thing at Chatsworth, not just because it's of my mother, but because it's a beautiful painting in its own right. But it wasn't always accepted as a great work of art, certainly when it was painted in the late 50s. I think that people were completely not ready for Freud's work at that time. They were shocked and pretty upset.
He titled the painting provocatively Woman in a White Shirt, so he strips her of her title in a way, solely focusing on something which he sees.
I was about 15 years old and I had plenty of time, and so I decided that I needed to really look at it in a way that I'd never looked at a painting before. So I did. I sat and I probably looked at it for half an hour at a time, often. And I quite quickly realized that it was far more beautiful. The initial impact is of a rather sad old woman. My mother was not sad. She was very beautiful. She was 38 years old when she was painted. And you get that if you look at it for a while. At least I did.
There you are, a painting with quite a story. In fact, didn't you sit for Lucian Freud yourself?
I sat for him, yes, just about then. And during I was at university, and I sat for him through one long summer vacation, and it was quite an introduction to a world I wasn't very familiar with. He was the best possible company. He was absolutely unrecognized as an artist. He was broke. He was incredibly keen on betting on horses. And he had this wonderful studio in Paddington with two very high windows facing north. And all the meters, electric, gas, water, were in this room. It had a shared toilet on the landing with the other people in the building. But all the meters were in his room, and they were chained up and locked. And sometimes the doorbell would ring, and Lucian would look out of the window and just indicate stand with him between the windows, because somebody had come to cut the gas off. And so we'd sometimes stand there for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, until the chap from the gas board had gone away. And Lucian would always have, in those days, 10 or 15 pounds, which would be more than enough to pay the gas bill. But he wouldn't pay it because he had a horse to back in the afternoon. And he was a terrific gambler, and it was no coincidence that the two best collections of his work belonged to bookmakers, one in the north of Ireland and one in London. But when he made it later in his career, when he became well-known and his work became valuable or expensive, he said there was no need to bet anymore because he'd got plenty of money. And so he wasn't a gambleraholic, but he was very keen on it. And a lot of his friends were in racing. And I think that was one of the ways he got to know my father. Yes.
And of course, one of the ways he relaxed, I suppose, as well. I imagine when people come or they think about coming to Chatsworth, they imagine that a lot of it's all about old art. But actually, you really have invested in contemporary art. Tell me about the DNA wall, which we'll see in a moment. But how did you even think of commissioning that sort of piece?
Well, the DNA wall is on the second floor, and it's on a south-facing space with a lot of big windows. So it's full of light, and light is wonderful for you and I. At least I love sitting in a light room, but it's not good for art. It's hopeless for any works on paper. It fades stuff straight away. Any fabric fades it straight away. Even oil painting is not very good for it. And so we were always putting the blinds down. And there were two big vitrines. There are two big vitrines in the space. And so we focused really on putting ceramics, which is one of the few things that doesn't lose any color or anything in the sunlight because it's been cooked.
Yes.
And we had a wonderful ceramic curator called Anne OBE. And she said, why don't you make the whole gallery ceramics? I think slightly jokingly. And we thought, well, that's actually a really, really good idea. So we have a friend called Joanna Bird, who's a ceramics dealer, contemporary ceramics dealer. And she introduced us to 5 different artists. So we went to see their studios and we asked them questions. And they didn't actually come to Chatsworth. We went to all their studios except for one because he was down in Devon and we didn't seem to have time. And eventually we chose Jacob van der Bergel, who's the one with studio we didn't go to, who was pretty young then. This is, 10 years ago at least. And he spent 4 years making what he calls a Norse sketch sequence. And it's a sort of abstract version of our DNA. We had all the swabs done. He got our DNA and he got, his brother-in-law is a scientist. And then he replicated in a sort of abstract way what our DNA would look like if it was made of ceramics sticking out from the wall. So every panel is different. And as I said, it took him 4 years to make it. So it's a sort of very contemporary portrait, although you couldn't possibly tell who it's of.
No, but it does mean it sums up the ancestry, the familial DNA, in a very, very modern way. We've got a video to show everybody. Let's have a look at this. This is from the Treasures of Chatsworth, and it's the DNA wall.
The idea I came up with was to produce 5 portraits of the mitochondrial DNA of the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire, their son, their daughter-in-law, and then something I call the everyman portrait. What I wanted to create was something that tied the beautiful portraits of artists like Gainsborough, Rembrandt, Reynolds, Sargent, and really find a contemporary way of dealing with ancestry and inheritance.
The centre bit is for everybody's DNA, and it's got tiny little mirrors of different height, so different people can look at themselves.
The Norse sketch sequence is comprised of 660 ceramic panels, all made by hand. Within those panels, you have about 6,000 handmade ceramic blocks that denote or translate the mitochondrial DNA. Each block is totally unique. It's scored and then cracked open so that each texture is totally unique. And that's all about the fact that everyone is unique.
It must be such fun commissioning new works of art and seeing them grow from an idea, maybe a sketch, into something real. It must be such fun.
It is very exciting. Something like that, something as big as that, and as sort of, in a way, groundbreaking, although that we didn't, groundbreaking in itself is not a prerequisite, but we found that, and we certainly, this is not original, but with commissioning, if things go really well, you get what the artist thinks you want. Quite often you get what the artist wants, and there's some wonderful examples from history here of things which the patron, whichever duke it was, particularly wanted and didn't get, got what the artist wanted. But if you've commissioned it, you're lumbered. You said, please do paint my dog or paint my sitting room or paint the flowers in the garden, and something comes back with the wrong colour because the artist is not interested in the colour of the flower. There's not much you can do about it. But with something like a big thing like this, our strongly held view is you ask an artist, you think very hard and long about which artist, you talk to the artist in a great deal of depth, so you explain as best you can what you'd like him to think about. And then it's up to him. You don't say, no, can you make it a bit bigger, or can you make that bit pink? You say, okay, that's what you created, and you've created a work of art, and you're the artist. And we find that's the only way it works. Otherwise, the artist is upset, and the client is probably upset too. So we've had 3 ceramic installations made, one by Edmund de Waal, one by Natasha Daintree, and Jacob's piece that we've just talked about. And we're thrilled. They're all very, very different, but they're all absolutely thrilled with them. And it is exciting commissioning. And commissioning small things, perhaps made of ceramics, is not necessarily very expensive. It's something that I really would encourage people to do because it's a lot of fun. You get to know the artist, get to know the process, and with any luck, you'll get what you want, or get something you like anyway.
And you are actually being a patron of the arts. You're enabling the artist. You were lovely enough to send me some photographs, which you could hopefully describe for me, actually, looking at these. This, again, is, now, what a lovely mixture of old and new here. But you've got that lovely old portrait of, can you see her?
No.
Ah.
Afraid I can't.
Find a way to show you. But you underneath, it's a lovely, it looks like a Tudor painting of a lady.
Oh, yes.
Underneath, a lot of ceramics.
Yes, the painting was here. It was first in Devonshire House, formerly in London, and then it was moved here in the 19th century, and that in our private dining room. And then under it are a whole series of ceramics by Pippin Drysdale, who is an Australian, and we bought those from her. We didn't know her in those days. She'd become a good friend and comes to stay most years. And they were on the visitor route outside, just through the door. And suddenly the team needed the table which the ceramics were on in a hurry. So we said, okay, we'll just bring them into the dining room. We'll put them on the first floor table we can find. And so it was under this picture. And of course, it worked a treat, but it was pure luck.
Yeah,
the coincidence of the.
Yeah.
So, but those ceramics weren't commissioned. They were, Pippin had already made them. They are sort of, she gets a lot of her inspiration from the wilder landscape of Australia, which is a country I don't know at all really. But we love her work and we love her. She's great fun.
I've got another photograph there of you and your wife standing there, the Duchess, obviously, standing there with another lot of those. It looks like this similar.
Same artist.
And again, that lovely mixture of some very old paintings there, the beautiful old marquetry floor and the beautiful modern ceramics. And that's what you can experience if you come, this mixture of old and new. But I suppose even the very old things in your house were cutting edge at the time, weren't they?
You're so right, Anne. That's exactly the point. Almost everything was new when it arrived. I mean, the paint was wet on nearly all the pictures. And they were contemporary, and the furniture was all brand new, came straight from the studio. In that, the second picture of the Pippin, she's on, the ceramics are on tables made by Boulle in France, and they came straight from the studio, and they were the most fashionable things of their time at the time. And they were bought to be used. The furniture was always bought to be used. And then after maybe, probably the next generation probably put them away because they didn't like them. That's what normally happens. The generation after that may have got them out and thought, that's a bit quaint. And then the third generation said, oh, those are very important pieces of furniture. We better put those behind a rope. We couldn't possibly sit on those. And so that's the way it works. And we're lucky enough to have a big house. And so there's room for several generations. In most people's houses, there isn't room. So you chuck out the old stuff or sell it or whatever, or give it to somebody. And so you don't get this whole sort of archaeological dig effect of different generations furniture or different generations silver or china or whatever. But here we do have that, and I think it makes it very interesting.
Yes, it shows an evolution, doesn't it? Let's look at some of the other photographs that you sent. I'll describe them for you if you. Oh, now this bed that's going in the view or went into the bedroom. What it looks stunning. I can't even.
It's made by Joseph Walsh, whose studio is near Cork Airport in Southern Ireland, and he's a really brilliant furniture maker. It's made of strips of ash, quite thin strips, and then it's all bent in the studio. And although the room is quite tall, as you can see from the photograph, the bed fills it. And in fact, I think it breaks down into 3 pieces, and it was craned in through. We had to take the window out to get it in. We've never had that on the visitor route, but it's very much our ambition one day to do that, because it's such a staggering bit of furniture.
Yeah, and that's not the only piece. I know that, I don't know if it's the same designer, but this amazing chair that looks almost like a living creature that's crawling across the floor.
Yes, they're the black ones or dark ones.
No, that's a cream one, but I know that there are also the black ones, and we've got a photograph of the workshop where they were made.
Right.
And then, of course, that is a set of, I don't know how many, 20 or something.
24 years.
Yeah, that are now around the dining table, and that look spectacular, very modern, but yet they belong, actually.
Yeah, well, we like them. They're more comfortable than they look, and they definitely will be on the visitor route. Either probably not this year, actually, but next year. There is a big dining room as part of the visitor route, and so we'll put that with probably old china and old silver to make the point that there's generational change. And we have had we've got a pair of his chairs, 2 pairs of his chairs, both 3-legged chairs, and we've had those on the visitor route for people to sit on, and people have loved it because they look miserably uncomfortable because they've got a bump in the back.
Great, they do, but they are more comfortable.
They're fine. They hit you in the back in just the right place, and so people would rather tentatively sit on them and then say, "Oh, this is really nice."
It's lovely, and of course, weather permitting, the gardens are utterly spectacular and evolving all the time. By the sound of it, you're always thinking of new areas to develop in certain different ways. And of course, the sculptures in the gardens.
Well, we were very lucky in that from about 2006, just after we'd arrived, we had with Sotheby's for 13 years, we had a program of exhibitions called Beyond Limits, and they were about between 20 and 30 contemporary sculptures or modern sculptures anyway, from the sort of early September till the end of October every year, and they arrived, and they're all different, and they were for sale. Sotheby's was selling them not by auction, but they were retailing them, and so it was having your own private exhibition. And the first year, 2006, we were new, we hadn't really arrived. The sculpture was brand new. And I don't know whether you know that big Robert Love sculpture called Love, which is about 10-foot square. And we plotted bright red, and we plonked that down. We placed it very carefully, I should say, in the Cascade, which is the sort of...
I don't have video of the Cascade, but it is the biggest, longest, most spectacular water feature. Oh, there it is. Yes, we are showing it.
A whole series of waterfalls. And of course, people were very upset because they thought, oh, these new people are going to ruin all this ghastly new stuff. But fun enough, so there was a bit of, it wasn't great the first year, but then quite soon people got excited when they realized that it was temporary, because we probably hadn't explained that very well, and people thought that it was permanent. And if it had been permanent, it would have been awful, I must say. But it wasn't, it was temporary. And so the second year, when everything had disappeared in November and nothing there through the summer, and then a whole new lot of stuff appeared, people got more and more interested. And we found that younger people came, which was something which had always been a bit of a challenge, sort of 25, 30-year-olds. And we spent a lot of time with schools, and we had a teachers' evening and explained the whole thing, gave them various bits of background materials. And so the teachers would bring the children in a group to look at the sculpture and explain about them. And then very soon after that, on a weekend, you would see a sort of 65-year-old grandfather with an 8-year-old child. And it was the 8-year-old child showing the grandfather the sculpture. And a lot of those grandparents wouldn't probably really wanted terribly to look at the contemporary stuff, but because it was their grandchild showing it to them, they loved it. Yeah. So that was a really lovely thing to see, because education is such an important part of what we do every.
You do run an education. I know during lockdown you've had to do what you call armchair adventures, which has been sort of online stuff. But you've always been you're very much committed to education programs, aren't you?
Yes, it's my parents. Well, my mother really started it with her farmyard, and it was originally a farmyard and forestry exhibition, and that was 40+ years ago. And one of the things that she realized then was that people living in, say, Chesterfield, 12 miles away, the kids wouldn't know where milk came from, because to the child in Chesterfield, the milk comes from a factory, which indeed it does. But they didn't realize that it came from a cow. So every afternoon there was a milking exhibition, and there still is, at 3:30, and a cow is milked. Not hand milk, but machine milk. And so the children can see the milk coming out of the cow and have it all explained that that's what they drink. That we're not allowed to actually give them the milk, but still. And they also have it explained that the cow can't produce milk without having a calf, which is important, part of, that's a fact. And so that was the beginning of our education. And as I say, that goes on, and there's more to it. It's not just the milking, but it's so important to explain the connection of the land and the food and, what you eat has come from an animal.
And also the fact that Chatsworth, a splendid country house as it is still part of a community and very much locked into a community.
So education's been a feature since my mother, in the middle of the 20th century onwards. And then our son and daughter-in-law, William and Laura, who have, they're not quite teenagers yet, but 3 children. So they're obviously very tuned into what those children need to learn about the countryside, because they live in London most of the time. They're here now, but and they'll be here for the holidays. And so William and Laura are very much involved in the education side, and it's something which we are expanding and will expand, and it's an opportunity to bring people here who perhaps have different cultures, who aren't used to sheep in the field or in the open parkland, and would perhaps be a little bit nervous, understandably, of those things, and explain the wool and the meat and all those things, and so people could see the connection. And it's something which, of course, we've had to be constrained during the lockdown, but we've got a big program ahead of us on that. Probably at the end of the day, as important as anything we do, I'd say.
Do you think you'll be able to do Big Deal Christmas at Chatsworth, which I know you're very famous for?
We have a plan to do Christmas at Chatsworth. We love doing that. And it's now the most popular time of year, but it will inevitably, I mean, it's quite soon Christmas in a terrifying way. It's not going to be, it's going to be new, different. It'll be distant, I guess, I expect, I don't know. I mean, how could this come to an end that quickly? But we will have something different from every area is different, and so we'll do it again different. It will be a different route. And then we've already started planning an exhibition for next year, which was the exhibition we were going to have this year. And we hope that the events will be back, the country fair and the horse trials and those things in 2021. But we, like everybody else, we just don't know.
No, playing it by ear. Let's give everybody a flavour of what Chatsworth is like at Christmas. Watch this video. It's absolutely gorgeous. Oh, it looks wonderful. Are you sentimental about Christmas? It must be wonderful.
What is lovely is people of, get 3 generations of a family coming together. And a lot of people come every year, and then they compare one year with another. And there's a certain age of child who is still absolutely bewildered and amazed by the whole thing and thrilled by it. And seeing those faces is incredibly rewarding. We have, like many people, trees, Christmas trees, where you can write a wish, and I love reading those. Although some of them are inevitably rather sad about a lost one or a loved one. But there's so much hope and so much excitement and sort of renewal. It's a lovely time of year, and it's great to be open then. And our wonderful room guides usually are now these days are nearly always in costume, which is good it's great for the visitors, but it's also good for the room guides because they can wear costumes which have lots of layers, so they keep warm. Because if the front door has to be open all the way through Christmas, it's jolly cold in the house, and whatever their uniforms are, they're designed now not to be grass skirts.
I would not want to look at your heating bill, that's for sure. Viking, I mean, here we are talking on Viking television.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how you have forged what is a very, very splendid relationship with Viking through books.
Well, the way this started was that my father had a bookshop on Curzon Street called Hayward Hill, which I inherited. And after 10 years of owning that, our son-in-law, Nicky Dunn, his job that he was doing came to an end. And he, the then manager, had left. And so Nicky said he would love to take it on, although he had no experience. And he's made it a fantastic success. And one of the things, we sell old books, we sell new books. It's only a tiny little shop. It would fit into this room easily. But also we sell whole libraries. And so Nicky got to know the people who owned the Viking line and persuaded them to buy, for him to sell them a library for one of the ships. And they were so pleased that they said, we'd like a library in each of the ships. And I think you had experience with that, Anne.
I absolutely have. And it's something that I noticed almost straight away. I was on a Caribbean cruise and I felt very guilty that I wasn't on a beach sunning myself, because that's what the holiday was all about. Instead, I found a nook in one area of the ship, and I was reading these absolutely delightful books. And I remember looking at all of the books and thinking, who chooses these books? How do they get it so right? And that's particularly what your son-in-law specializes in.
Yeah, well, he had a great team of people who choose books. We make libraries. Sometimes, I mean, obviously, a lot of the Viking libraries are about exploration and travel, inevitably, and other things as well. They're more general. But sometimes people want very small libraries, maybe just 30 or 40 books on something like we did one on rowing for somebody for their 50th birthday, who'd been a very good oarsman. And sometimes much bigger, then it might be about Western art in India or something like that, a special subject. And the other thing that he's done with his team, which is very popular, is a year in books. So somebody gives you for your birthday or for Christmas a year in books, and you have usually a telephone consultation with a book buyer, and you say what sort of books you like reading. And then they send you books that they think, it's a bit of a commission actually, came back to that. They send you the books they think you'll like. You get a new one every month in beautiful brown paper, beautifully wrapped. And of course, you don't know what it's going to be. And usually we find that what really is popular is that you're sent books which you love, but you would never have bought yourself because you didn't know the author or you didn't know whatever. And so that's become a very popular part of what Hayward Hill do.
Well, we've got a video there as well.
Oh, good.
One of Viking's own videos to show what a special relationship between yourselves and Viking turned to be in the wonderful experience of actually going on a cruise and having a few moments just to tuck yourself away with a really brilliant book. Have a look at this.
The ships of Viking sail with the most sophisticated, thought-provoking libraries on the water. They're curated by Hayward Hill, a tiny shop in London that just happens to take care of the Queen's book needs too. And for the rest of us, Hayward Hill also offers a yearly subscription plan that delivers a good read chosen just for you every month.
The essence of this business is good writing and our shared love of good writing. And there are 16 of us here and we all have the passion for good books. The heart of what we do here is recommending books individually And we thought, well, why not open that service to people who can't come into the shop? And so we set up a very bespoke subscription service where one of our expert booksellers has a conversation, hopefully in person, but perhaps over the telephone or even online, to find out what your taste in reading really is and where you are in your reading. And that begins a fabulous relationship with our shop. I'm pleased to say that that service has really taken off and is happening all over the world. Our subscriptions team read at least 500 titles a year between them. It's an extraordinary thing. My team spends all day thinking about individual customers and what they should read next, what they might like to read the following month.
Haywood Hill is a very special place, filled with intriguing books and inspiring people. I hope you'll do as I did and check out their subscription service for yourself. Or perhaps give it as a gift to someone special.
Well, you've got to go on a cruise and thoroughly enjoy your own library aboard it.
I would love that. It looks glorious, I must say. And Viking have such a reputation.
Oh, yes, it's
Yeah.
spectacular. Right, we've got lots of questions coming in for you. And one of them, in fact, several of them, are on something that's rather obvious and I should have asked you about. You are the Duke of Devonshire, but you're not living in Devon. You're living up north in Derbyshire, which is where Chatsworth is. How come?
Well, it's quite a. What happened was that there was a woman called Bess of Hardwick who married a man called Sir William Cavendish, and they built the first house at Chatsworth. He was a civil servant working for Henry VIII, and he made a lot of money doing that. And they bought the estate at Chatsworth, they built a new house, and her son, her heir, not the eldest son, who was a bit of a rascal and had no children, but the son William decided he needed a title, and he went to London and bought, which is what you could do in those days, for £10,000, which was a serious lot of money. It was several £1 million now, an earldom. And so he went to, I imagine, the College of Heralds about this title. And they said, you can't be the Earl of Derby because there already is one, as indeed there still is. And the earldom that's just come vacant is the Earldom of Devonshire. So you're going to be the Earl of Devonshire. And I don't think he realized what an incredibly inconvenient decision that was, because it's not unlike Derbyshire, but it's completely different. And actually, Devonshire doesn't exist. The county is called Devon. So we've been called Devonshire ever since. Our family name is Cavendish, which is where William came from, that the man who started, and that's a village in Suffolk. And so we really have no connection with Derby or Derbyshire, except that's where we've always lived, and it's where our home is.
And how many generations then of Dukes of Devonshire have there been, and where are you?
I'm 12th. And there were 4 generations before that, so it's really 16 generations.
My goodness.
But not always father to son. There's been some cousins. There's a couple of dukes didn't have any children, and so it went what you might call sideways to a cousin. But it's mostly father to son, and an awful lot of them, until my grandfather, were called William, so we give them numbers. Because it's a little bit like the Americans do. So we always refer to the 6th Duke because he was called William, and he was the Victorian Duke who built the wing and was a big collector. We never call him William Cavendish because that doesn't get you any closer to who you're talking about.
Well, no, there are lots of Williams, aren't there?
Yeah, too many.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah.
It's interesting as well. You're talking about you talk about the 4th Duke or the 6th Duke, and you do have gardens named after them. You've got a 4th Duke garden and a 6th Duke.
Yes, well, there's certainly a greenhouse named after the 1st Duke, because up until about 5 years ago, we thought that it was the 1st Duke's greenhouse. We've discovered since then that it probably wasn't, but never mind, it's still called the 1st Duke's greenhouse. And bits of the garden, like bits of the house, get associated with different generations. So we would probably refer to it as the 6th Duke's wing, the Wyatt Bill's wing, which was made in about 1830. Not to everybody's architectural taste, I must say, but at least he filled it with lovely things. So, and he wanted it. The house wasn't big enough for his entertaining, and so he built a huge dining room, a wonderful sculpture gallery, an orangery, and then at the end he put a theatre. Well, no, a ballroom, which became a theatre later.
Yeah, so almost every generation has contributed something, added on.
Yeah. Certainly the first 6 dukes did that, but he was so extravagant that he left an enormous debt when he died, in modern money, about $100 million of debt. And so for the next 100 years, things went very, very quiet. And it wasn't he died in 1858 until about 1958. Very little new happened. And they were all politicians. One was briefly prime minister, and one was nearly prime minister 2 or 3 times. And so they spent a lot of time in London, Westminster, being politicians. And for that 100 years, there was very little collecting. It became a different emphasis altogether.
Well, it's had to evolve. In fact, somebody has just messaged a question. John Harrelson from New York. Hi there, John. Says, do you get help from the state to finance the upkeep of the house? How do you manage?
Well, we get indirect help because, as I said earlier, it is a charity. Therefore, we don't pay tax on the income. All the income goes to the charity, not to us. And we have had grants. We get agricultural and forestry grants, and we have had grants from Natural England, English Heritage, and so on. But mostly it's paid for, 99% of it's paid for by the income from visitors.
And as you said, that's why this year has been
a disaster.
Disastrous, yes. Absolutely. Ashley Silverstein from San Francisco. Hello there, Ashley, says, do you heat this entire beautiful house during the winter? What is your single most expensive annual expense? I assume roof maintenance must be up there. And what is the plumbing like?
Well, we don't heat all of it. There's no heating on the 2nd floor. Therefore, if you go up there, you want to walk fairly quickly. There's no functioning heating in the wing on the 1st floor. There is on the ground floor, which is mostly offices. The biggest single expense is inevitably staff, because the plumbing and the roof and the heating, such that it is, was all renewed between 2006 and 2016. So that's in fairly good nick, and we burn wood on the fire. We have central heating, but we have to be a bit careful because to not make it too warm because of the art. But it's very comfortable.
Yes.
Plenty of hot water.
Do you actually live there?
Yeah, we live here all the time. We live on the ground floor is mostly for visitors, except for these rooms and our kitchen. We have most of the 1st floor, and the visitors have the 2nd floor, and then we have the attic. And when we were renewing the house, we lived in the attic for 2 years, which is 82 steps up. You don't want to leave your spectacles behind; it's inconvenient, but it kept us fairly well. And it actually works. You could be staying here or having lunch with us or dinner, lunch, and you wouldn't know that there were maybe 1,000 people in the house. And then obviously it's lovely to meet them when you go down there.
Yes, as you said, it's a house that was built to show off.
Yes.
You don't build a house that big, as you said to me earlier, and then gild it without wanting to show it off to people.
Of course not. So everybody's welcome.
Lene Tengevald Jensen from Oslo says, thank you for sharing from your wonderful world to us all. The painting of your mother was absolutely stunning, and the Christmas decorations were like a fairy tale. I have 2 questions. What is the best memory you have from your life there? And of all the rooms, which is your favourite and why?
Well, I think they're sort of a bit intertwined. There's a small terrace outside our sitting room, which faces south, faces towards the big pond with a big high fountain in it, and it faces south. And particularly in the evenings when it's quiet in the summer, I love to sit out there and read. It's not a room because it's an outdoor space, but it's where I'd as sooner be than anywhere else in the house, I think. and it has a lot of very happy memories. It's a place we often gather for drinks before dinner. So it's sort of a social space as well as everything else. But there's a lot of happy places. There's no ghosts in the house that I've ever been aware of. It has a lovely, I mean, perfectly, you'd be very relaxed walking about at night, completely alone in the house. I don't think you'd feel in any way sort of nervous.
Do you love it?
I absolutely do. I'm incredibly proud of it. We're very lucky. We have a wonderful team here who are professionals who help keep the show on the road. Visitors, mostly, I'm glad to say, thoroughly enjoy it. They're very nice about it on TripAdvisor and so on, usually. And there's lots more we can do. There's more we can do with the community. There's more we can do with education. There's more we can do with sharing the collection, interpreting it, making it relevant, and also encouraging new young artists. There's lots of opportunities.
Well, certainly, as I said at the beginning, I'm very ashamed that I have never come and seen it, and I will make darn sure I do very soon. And I know a lot of people watching right now, wherever they are in the world, will probably be writing it down as a must-see. At the moment, if we wanted to come, how do we do it? You have to book tickets now.
You need to book. The house, as I say, I hope will be open towards the end of July. Go onto the website, which is www.chatsworth.org. And I think it's quite easy to understand. You need to book either for the garden or for the house. If you go to the house when it's open, which it isn't quite, then you get the garden as well. And once you've got and there's plenty of places to stay, but I strongly recommend the train service from London. It's about 2 hours. It's much better than driving. There's plenty of very friendly taxi drivers in Chesterfield. And Chesterfield's got this wonderful church with a crooked spire. I don't know whether you've ever seen that, Anne. It's absolutely wonderful. And they'll bring you, the excellent taxi team there will bring you to Chatsworth and arrange to pick you up and take you home. Or there's a lovely places to stay if you want. The Peak District is really beautiful. Buxton is an extraordinary town. And there's lots of the Hardwick, which was where my family started, is one of the most beautiful Elizabethan houses I think there is in England. And it belonged to us until after the war when we were sold for tax reasons, but it's still a wonderful place to go. There's plenty of interesting places. Haddon Hall has the most lovely garden and it's very old, 13th century.
You've just answered a question from Francine Hester in Cambridge. Hello, Francine, who said, if one visited Chatsworth, what are the other places of interest you would recommend so you could make a weekend of it, where you've just said?
Well, Hardwick and Haddon would be a great start. And then Eyam, the plague village, not far away, Little John's Grave, which is enormous, one of Robin Hood's men. There's lots and lots of really lovely places to walk, lovely places to cycle. Very good food all round, fun enough.
Oh my goodness, I'm coming soon. It's lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely fascinating. What a wonderful place, and what a wonderful place to be proud of. What a heritage to keep going as well. It must be very hard work.
It's not. It's such fun. It's the best fun ever. Thank you very much. It's been really good.
It's been absolutely delightful. Thank you so much.
No,
that's Stoker, the Duke of Devonshire. Thank you very, very much indeed. I love another lovely interview. When I say a lovely interview, I'm not complimenting myself, by the way. I'm just saying that it's just been so delightful every Thursday to be able to interview somebody so fascinating.
Do you know who you've got up your sleeve for next week?
Sorry, say again.
Do you know who you've got next week?
I do. I've got the Earl of Carnarvon.
Oh, of course you have, yeah.
That's interesting again, because Carnarvon, people expect them to live in Wales, but of course they don't. And there's a story to that as well, where he's got lots of stories to tell. His story.
That would be fun, because of course I follow it closely on Instagram, and I'm jealous of the huge numbers they get, but there is a reason for that.
Absolutely, yes. Maybe. Mind you, Chatsworth has been the location for so many movies as well, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, and which is fun. There's nothing. They seem to come along a bit like buses, but there's nothing on the stocks at the moment. But I'm sure something will appear. I hope so.
Absolutely. Cross fingers for you.
But do come and see us. Please do. I'll get your I'll get how to find you through James.
Absolutely, we will find a way towards each other.
It'll
And
be fun.
we will meet at Chatsworth and maybe on a lovely Viking cruise.
Oh, that would be great.
That would be something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Duke of Devonshire, thank you very, very much for joining me today. I'm Anne Diamond, signing off after another fascinating Thursday. Thank you very much for joining us, and keep safe, keep well, and next week we'll be meeting the Earl of Carnarvon.